Good morning. My name is Daniel Zrno, and I am your host for today's Show Me the Metrics webinar, and I'm the VP of Solutions at AbilityMap. This webinar is part of a longer series we've been running to explore the future of HR. We begun this series by researching the capabilities required of HR leaders, and then we listened to a panel of C-suite executives to understand what they wanted from HR leaders. And now today, we're going to focus on HR tech and how it can support HR leaders in delivering on their business purpose and ultimately their objectives. Now, the term HR tech is quite a broad one and refers to lots of different types of software, most of which traditionally have been around the automation of essential HR functions, being things like payroll or recruitment, learning, rem and ben, performance management. We can go on forever. And whilst we refer to those today, we'll also be really focusing on the next generation of technologies, like the one I work for, AbilityMap, which is a next generation assessment tool, and how these next generation technologies can help elevate HR and the way they engage and work with businesses to deliver those objectives I mentioned earlier. So let me introduce our guest today, Shayne Brown, who will explore this topic with me today. Shayne is an experienced business leader with more than 25 years of experience across all HR functions and disciplines, including 11 years consulting with commercial clients to enhance organizational capability. Shayne has led teams and managed departments at a senior level, implementing initiatives for organizations such as ASIC, Coles Groups, Caltex, BlueScope Steel, during periods of restructure and cultural change. It is Shayne's passion for connecting people to business strategy and capturing their experiences from entering to exiting an organization that has ignited her interest to share her experience with us today. So let's get into it, Shayne, and welcome.
Thank you, Daniel, and welcome to our audience today. Look, all too often, tech people can talk about solving a challenge or meeting a customer need, but they're missing what the people who use this technology actually care about. Okay, so the objective of this webinar is that I get to grill Daniel about technology, where it's helped, where it's been a hindrance and why, and where the future lies in this technology. Equally, Daniel gets to understand what HR practitioners need from HR tech and what key metrics matter to CEOs in 2023. So hopefully together we'll provide a clearer picture of what HR technology needs to be when it comes to enhancing things like organisational capability. So Daniel, how has the disruption over the past 3 years changed the landscape for HR tech vendors?
Great question, and absolutely it has changed quite significantly. I've been working with HR tech for 23 years and I've never seen such a significant pace and the amount of change that we've seen. I think there's three main areas I think that have changed the way vendors need to work. And the first one is around expectation from customers these days. We've shown that we can now implement, adopt and adapt technology much faster than we used to. We were used to horizons of, in some cases, years, many months. We've now shown we can deliver tech much faster, whether it be HR tech or even things like teams. Organizations were looking at horizons of like 3 years to deliver those tools, and then during the pandemic did it in weeks. So I think that's really exciting, and I hope that really sticks around. The other one is the transition from employee experience. We spoke a lot about employee experience prior to the unprecedented times that we have now, to employee well-being. That real need to understand that during these times, people are under new levels of stress, heightened stress, and that need to really understand them and individualize our approaches to set them up for success and to make sure they're okay is really coming up again and again with our customers. And then underpinning all of that is something that's sort of been there and talked about for a long time, but is really now actively happening, is that need for evidence-based decision-making, using science, using tools to understand a problem, diagnose it, and then act on that and prescribed actions. We really see that becoming more and more important. And I think I'm really lucky to be at AbilityMap at this time in the world. We've really fared well in this environment because our technology really focuses on all of those. How can we rapidly deliver outcomes to customers and make that easy? You don't have to be a technologist. We're really proud of doing that. And underpinning that is a science to help you use evidence to understand your people, understand where we can help them play to their strengths, and understand if we're putting them in situations where they're going to struggle, what that looks like and where we can help them.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Daniel. And, a couple of key points that you've raised that I'd like to delve down into a little bit further. But, people are not an exact science, and many HR professionals are sceptical of HR tech because it's not intuitive enough to accommodate this. And some of the key complaints that I still keep hearing, despite the fact that you've spoken about, you've got the ability now to be able to implement a lot quicker than before, but I'm still getting the complaints that this technology is being created by IT tech experts with really a little understanding of the HR profession and the employee life cycle. I hear complaints about the design is vanilla and customization is expensive, and still it's taking a long time to implement. So why do you think these keep getting raised, Daniel?
Yeah, I think, look, I think those are fair comments, and I don't blame businesses and HR practitioners for that skepticism. And I think before we get into the detailed answers to some of that, I think there's an overall mismatch of expectations. Tech is all too often considered some sort of silver bullet. Both customers and vendors, I think, have created unrealistic expectations of what tech can deliver, especially what tech can deliver by itself. I mean, if you look at Gartner, which many of us may know of as a very prominent analyst, they've even created a hype cycle that describes this problem in itself. So I think the first problem is around expectations.
Okay, yeah, interesting, Daniel. Look, I thought from the customer side that they would simply want accurate, reliable, secure data that leaders could use to help make informed business decisions. While most organisations, as we all know, have readily adopted technology for transactional processes, many have lost sight of the transformational benefits that this technology can bring. Now, is this because the vendor sold them the transformational benefits, but the technology couldn't deliver it? Or do you think that the customer just didn't understand how to integrate the data to really maximise these benefits?
That's a really good question, Shayne. I think there's, again, a bit of a shared responsibility there. I think ultimately, most of the solutions that I've experienced over the last 10 to 20 years have ended up being transactional processes that have been implemented. When we look at the word transformation, the way I look at that is you're looking for some sort of step change in a business, not just some incremental improvement. And a lot of organizations have gone for this sort of technology-driven change approach, which is not something I particularly adhere to. I think for the technology is part of the solution. You need a holistic approach that includes, your people, your processes, the tech change, a broad business mindset to say, actually, we're looking to significantly change, not simply do something better. And the best phrase I've heard to describe this, and I heard it many years ago, and does describe a lot of previous generation technologies, is old process plus new technology equals expensive old process. I think a lot of what we've done is just put these processes online, try to make them a little bit more efficient, but really haven't done transformation, and the technology itself doesn't do that. And when I look at, in my experience, what sort of contributes to that, I think there's three main factors. The first is what the solution's designed for. The next is who it's been designed by, and then who it's been designed for. And I think if we look at what the solution is designed for, so much of what we've been doing in HR and many industries is implementing best practice, getting somebody else's process and applying that. And when we look at your earlier comment around like vanilla processes, it's difficult to then roll out processes with the rules, but then look at flexibility and then bring in your unique business. There's some real hard compromises there. Vendors are looking at trying to get scale and try to solve as many customer problems as they can. And what also tends to happen there is vendors tend to start with a focus of what they're really good at, like maybe payroll or learning, but then they end up expanding, and it's hard to be best of breed in everything. And it's about getting that right balance, and that trade-off's difficult. Paul Swain, thanks, Paul. He's agreeing with us online then. The other one is who it's been designed for. I think the bulk of HR technologies, even though they're HR tools, I actually don't believe they've been developed for HR. They've actually been developed for administrators. How do we administer a process, and not about what the value is for end users? And I think that always permeated by the end problem of who it's been designed by. Too often we need the tech experts, but we haven't got HR people designing the solutions themselves. And I know at Ability Map, a big thing we've focused on is addressing that. We've really focused on, okay, let's move beyond best practice and enable organizations to adapt our solution to their unique business environment. In fact, that's like a guiding principle of our business. We need a solution that's unique to our customers, and so is our science. Our science needs to be able to understand its unique environment. And then the last bit is we've also heavily focused on adding value to all our users, not just HR, but managers, employees, and candidates themselves. And I think, just to give one of my founders a bit of a plug, I think that the key to that has been Kevin Chandler. Kevin used to run Chandler McLeod Group and was the founder there, but is a 50-year org psych and 50-year HR practitioner. And he really brought all that experience going, how can we help those day-to-day activities? How can we better engage with managers, help them understand the problem, help us? How can we add value to our employees and candidates? And that's been a real guiding principle throughout everything we've done. Sorry, that was a lot from me, Shayne. What do you, from a HR practitioner's perspective, what do you really need in HR tech?
Well, if I just go back to what you were saying previously, look, it definitely is a partnership between the HR tech vendor and the customer. But look, I'm going to summarise what HR practitioners need just in 4 points. First of all, they need continued investment from the HR tech firms. It's just not a set and forget. We live in a world of constant disruption. Thus, we need the HR tech to continually evolve, and certainly without the burden of expensive upgrades and modifications. We need interfaces that integrate the data in real time, address the behavioural economics, and are able to use predictive analytics to create a narrative. And I just would like to quickly just break that down for our audience. What I mean by that is we need interfaces that provide seamless, cost-effective integration of data from multiple systems so that we can understand the bigger picture. This is usually done, as you know, through API technology. Yep. We need interfaces that are designed with the user in mind, identifying why they need the data, how they navigate and analyse the data, where they go to define the data, and when they need to do this. And also the integrated data really needs to have the smarts to predict trends, which will enable the HR practitioner to create the narrative around this. There needs to be an awareness that many HR professionals are not geared to be tech experts. Many are still in the early stages of the digital journey. And as such, we need technology that makes a quantifiable saving, which can be easily communicated to the business. This is a key thing that I find time and time again when the CPO goes to the board or goes to the commission, that they really find it difficult to be able to quantify what the technology is actually bringing to business, and noting also that this saving may be in terms of dollars, but also it may be in terms of people's well-being. So Daniel, just back over to you. Look, I'm interested in hearing from you on this point.
Okay, I think just starting with your end piece around quantifiable savings, I think one of the challenges is how I guess you framed that. I think, again, back to the earlier comment, that the technology in itself won't derive that many savings. Yes, you might get some incremental efficiencies as part of implementing a solution, but it's really got to be part of how we're going to, if we want to really make step change in our business, how does the technology in line with changes in process, maybe our operating model, maybe our HR operating model, how do they come together and deliver the savings? I think that tends to really be the missing part. And that I wish the technology could give you all those answers, but but they can't by themselves. And I think there's also an opportunity on the data side. I think as HR, we've been very good to focus on the cost savings piece. And I know we could do better, Shayne, but I think we're reasonably good at that. There's also an opportunity to look at the upside of things. With the next generation of technologies, we're able to go, actually, how can we improve productivity? How can we improve performance? I think there's an opportunity for HR to get more share of the money out there. I think, marketing will go to finance and say, give me 300 grand and I'll make you $1 million. I think HR has an opportunity to go, well, look, yeah, give us 100 grand, we'll save you 300 grand, but give us another 100 grand and we can affect productivity here. I think there's that real point. But to do that goes back to the data piece you were mentioning, which was around HR people aren't technologists. HR tech's got to get better at all this data that it has, exposing it and providing it away so that HR professionals and managers and employees can better understand what it means and how they can act on that. I think it's really critical. We've been capturing a ton of data, but how do we prescribe actions that we can take better? I think that's really important. If any of you don't follow Dave Ehrlich on LinkedIn, he's a big proponent of moving from best practice to prescribing actions, and I'm a big fan of how that works. Lorna's just asked, process tech and people, which one would you say is the most important? I would say people, personally. I don't know where you land on that one, Shayne, but I think...
definitely people, Daniel.
Yep, that's not a surprise there. But I think, look, and all the tech's here to serve the people. The process is here to serve the people. So I think, the technology should enable the people to do what they need to do in their roles. So as we move on, Shayne, in your experience, getting to one of the key parts of this webinar is, what do you see as the key metrics the C-suite are going to be looking for in 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, look, I love this question, Daniel. Thank you. First of all, let me just reflect on PwC's latest 2023 CEO survey. And what they found is one of the biggest disruptors for Australian CEOs now and over the next decade is securing the right capabilities. So you might ask, well, why the shortage? And as our audience would be aware, in 2021, we witnessed the Great Resignation. In 2022, the quiet quitting. And now in 2023, all signs seem to be pointing to this new term, the anti-work movement, where people are turning their backs on long hours, poor quality job design, and they're seeking greater purpose and impact with the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. So this whole landscape prompted me to go out to some board members, CPOs, CDOs, and operational GMs, and ask them what the key metrics, one of the key metrics that matter to the C-suite in 2023. And, I was really heartened to find that the most resounding response, even from the board level, was, is this organisation a compelling place to work to attract the right capabilities? And as a HR professional, I loved hearing that response. So as our audience would be aware, research has linked engaged, motivated employees who are working in a psychologically safe environment to increase productivity and increase profitability. Thus, the C-suite would expect that they'd have the data that integrates all the people experience results, the recruitment, the onboarding results, the wellbeing engagement survey separation results, and integrating that data with retention turnover and with workforce composition. And they'd expect that the system's predictive analytics is really able to identify patterns and trends. Look, also what I found, in this research and particularly in this post-pandemic world, the C-suite are now really interested in the impact that hybrid work is having, not only on wellbeing and productivity, but also on their physical assets, for example, their office real estate. And interestingly enough, whenever I speak to CEOs or the C-suite about the metrics in their organisation, they always ask me, how are these metrics stacking up against others in similar industries? So they're the sorts of things that the C-suite seem to be asking questions around in 2023.
Those are great, Shayne. And just to jump on one of those points, yeah, you started off by saying securing the right capabilities. And as you know, Ability Map, we focus on human capabilities. When you're talking to organizations, do you think they have a good understanding of the capabilities they actually need in this new environment? I saw a statistic come out for, I think, LinkedIn last year, and they said the average lifespan of a technical skills is 5 years these days. You know, when you're talking to customers, how well do they understand what they need to move forward?
Look, that's a great point. First of all, do they understand what they've got in the organisation? Yep. First of all, that's the first thing. No, I don't think they actually really know. They might say something like, we need lawyers. Great. Well, what capabilities of a lawyer do you actually need? Oh, we need more leaders. Well, exactly what do you mean by that? So I think they've got broad roles that they think they need, not broad capabilities. And in this world, the organisation needs to know exactly what capabilities they have, because you may find that they've got capabilities in hidden quarters. So people may have the role of an HR professional, but do they realise that HR professional might have had 20 years in a multitude of environments and has lots of other capabilities that don't sort of fit neatly under an HR manager role? So do they really understand what capabilities they have? And if they really understood what capabilities they had, when the landscape changes or when there's some disruption, they should be able to quickly gather those capabilities together, find out who's got them, where they live in different pockets, pull them together to be able to address what the latest project is, or what they're going to need to be able to mitigate the risk of that disruptor.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Shayne. I think as we're coming up to time in the next 5 minutes or so, I've got a final question for you. I'm sure you've been involved with plenty of technology implementations over the years, and would you be able to share with our attendees, you know, what do you think tends to make implementations go wrong or go right in your experience?
Look, as an HR professional, I'd prefer to swing that around and say, what makes it go right? Forget about what makes it go wrong, but what really makes it go right? And obviously you can flip it, you know, to acknowledge what might make it go wrong. Okay, so first of all, you absolutely need to get buy-in from the C-suite. They really do not understand how to utilise the HR technology. And you know, whose responsibility is that? Well, it's key stakeholders it's the responsibility of multiple stakeholders. Another thing that you need to really do is to review and streamline your HR processes before you consider any HR tech. What you want to do is to avoid as far as possible any customization of the new technology. As we all know, it's extremely expensive. When an upgrade occurs, you add extra cost onto anything that you've actually customized. Key, of course, is you need to be able to manage that change process. This is a shared responsibility among multiple stakeholders. It's not just the HR's responsibility or the IT or the vendor's responsibility. It's multiple. It's shared responsibility among multiple stakeholders. You absolutely need to partner with an HR tech firm that you trust, but one that continually evolves its technology, and once again, without the burden of expensive upgrades. You need to be able to address the behavioural economics in the design of that technology. But let's just go back to what HR needs to do. They really need to create a flexible HR tech strategy. By this, I mean they need to identify and monitor triggers that may cause disruption, prepare contingency plans to address those disruptions, and establish a governance framework. And I think this is absolutely critical, that, you know, it is HR's responsibility to ensure that the technologies is not set and forget. So the governance framework is one where key stakeholders meet regularly to review the total HR tech investment and also to conduct health checks. So they'd be my key points, Daniel, to help makes it go right.
And it's a great list, and really harps back to the challenge I started with, the question I posed to everyone when we began, which was, have you and your organisation been getting the full value from your HR tech investment? There's a lot to consider, and in my experience, Many people, a lot of those items in there, people try or downgrade their importance. Change is one that's shortchanged, pardon the pun, on a regular basis there as well. I think as we're coming up to close, it's a great time to answer some questions from the audience. And we've got a few that have come through. So let's start with Tracy. Tracy has asked, with the increasing use of AI and automation in HR, how can we ensure that human connection and empathy are not lost in the hiring and employee experience? Shayne, I'll let you to have a go at that one, and then I'll have a try.
Wow, great question. My recommendation would be, okay, so first of all, we need to get some data on what that recruitment onboarding process is actually like, and we need to take from people's experience and use that to better invest our recruitment and onboarding efforts. So it's one of those loops where you gain data, you gather data from those that you've recruited and onboarding and inducted, etc., and then you feed that back into ensuring that you're actually capturing the sorts of information that you need prior to that recruitment. So it's really sort of a double loop feed, that you get the data, you feed that back in, you make it better, you get the data, you feed that back in, you make it, you improve.
Right. And I think in addition to what Shayne just said, I think AI, and we've heard, if you go back a couple of years ago, the problems Amazon had with their recruiting process and the way that data was biased, and they removed the AI from that process. I think AI needs to be used as a guide. I'm sure we've heard about ChatGPT as well. I think we shouldn't be making, at this stage at least, any absolute decisions based on it, but we can use it to guide. It can give us information to help us better understand people, but it shouldn't be used as a way to sit between us and our employees or and our candidates to make decisions. The next question is from Lorna. Lorna has asked, since there's a skills shortage coming, shouldn't companies focus a lot more on internal training rather than looking to hire? I might have a crack at that one first, Shayne. I don't think a skill shortage is coming. I mean, it's been here forever. I can remember working in HR tech in the year 2000, and we were already using the phrase war for talent. I think good people are hard to find. I think it's now made worse with the current market dynamics, as well as that lifetime of technical skills. And I think we need to focus on all channels. I think absolutely we need to develop people internally, but we also need to develop them for the right things. And with such a changing environment, I think the traditional ways of learning and career pathing needs to be more adaptable and more fluid and more targeted to the individual. I think we still need to recruit, but we also have to develop as well. Your thoughts on that one, Shayne?
Look, I go back to my initial information around knowing what capabilities you've actually got in the organisation. If you don't know what you've got, then you don't know how to sort of expand on those, or you don't know how to gather them together to be able to achieve what it is that you need to achieve. So I think that's the first thing. But I think the thing that I suppose gets on my nerves or gets up my nose is when a leader thinks that they need a particular role and you are almost forced to go out to find that role rather than really looking at what you've actually got internally and having some sort of growth plan for that internal cohort. And I think that's a challenge for not only the HR professionals, but also I challenge the leaders to say, look, really, do you need that role? Why don't you just see what you do have internally before you actually go out into the market to seek something else? And yes, I'm absolutely all for growth and development. Being an HR professional, I think that's sort of our bread and butter, to believe that people can be developed, and it's our responsibility to do so.
Thanks, Shayne. Well, we're coming up to time. Just as we go over just by a couple of minutes, I'll give you a couple of rapid fire questions, if you don't mind, Shayne, which is from a CPO perspective, if you had to recommend to other HR professionals acquiring and buying HR tech, what would be the top question you would say? Yeah, let's only just do one question. What would be the top question they should ask a vendor as they're looking to procure the technology?
Yeah, okay. I would ask, what are the critical success factors for our partnership to work, both during the implementation phase and also on an ongoing basis? I'd want to know what those success factors are in this working relationship.
I think that's a great question, because it is a partnership. It's not, again, it's about the people, process, technology. It's about your vendor relationship. And I couldn't agree more. It's about how do we work together to be successful, and adapt. Again, I mentioned adapt early. You know, businesses don't stand still. We need to do that quickly. Well, look, thank you so much, Shayne. Just to finish things off, do you have any final statements to our attendees today?
Okay. HR technology should support the objective of getting the right people in the right role at the right time, doing the right work, and in doing so, ensuring that they can bring their whole self to work. That would be my final statement, Daniel.
Shayne, that's great. I love that whole self piece. I've heard variations of the starting piece, but I think in this world with well-being being so important, and the blurred lines between work and home life, I think that's a lovely touch. Thanks, Shayne. So thank you. And with that comment, it's a good place to end our webinar today. On behalf of Ability Map, I really want to thank you, Shayne, for your insights and attending today. Just, you know, Shayne went and interviewed some of her colleagues and peers to get ready for today and really has invested some time. So I really thank you, Shayne. And you will all receive a follow-up from Ability Map sharing some information about us, in addition to a link of a recording of this session. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time today, and have a great second half of the week, everyone.